Let's jump in. So I'm really delighted to welcome you all to the inaugural meeting of the Seniors for Climate. My name is Amber Bennett, and during my day job, I'm the Executive Director for Reclimate, which is a center based at Carleton University, and we focus on climate change communications and engagement. But I'm also a mom, and I'm based here in Calgary, Alberta, which is the Treaty 7 territories. Sometimes we feel alone in the work that we're doing, but I'm really delighted to say that more than 500 people, 502 people actually, registered for today's meeting. And I think that's a wonderful show of how important this topic is and how much support and interest there is across the country. You can see on one of the maps that we had, there are interested groups and people joining us all the way from Halifax to Vancouver Island to up north. So coast to coast to coast. So in terms of the agenda, we will have acknowledge the lands in which we're joining and hosting this conversation. Then we have a number of really great speakers. Ken Johnson will be talking through why seniors, why now. Dr. Louise Comeau will be sharing more around what the public opinion research has to tell us about seniors. And then we have two members of the Seniors for Climate who've been working in the background who will share a bit more about the initiative and the planned activities for October 1st. We have some examples of some of the actions that are already underway in terms of planning to get those kind of inspirational juices flowing. We have a map of where groups are situated across the country to kind of give you a sense of how many and the regions that are active already. There is quite a bit of time for questions and answers. And then we'll have an opportunity for anyone who's inspired and wants to sign up to do that. And then we'll have a little bit of next steps and how we're moving forward. Just to reassure everyone, we are recording tonight's session. The slides will be available, as well as an edited version of the questions and answers. So if you do have to drop off at some point during the meeting, those follow-up communications will be emailed to you and to anyone who's registered for the meeting itself. I will now hand it over to Marion Endicott to lead us through a land acknowledgement.
Thank you. Well, here we all are, apparently 287 in this room. But when each of us looks out the window, we see a different thing. An arbutus tree, a crow, an oak, an ocean, a lake, a mountain, a pingo, a prairie, a city street, or a country lane. A view that no doubt each of us cherishes. Wherever we are on land that has been inhabited for thousands upon thousands of years by peoples who built their societies in their localities, these localities, with distinct languages, cultures, mythologies, and relationships with others. Some of us may be descendants of those people, and most of us are descendants of people who arrived on these lands over the last 500 years to build a new life. Some of us are newly arrived for that dream. Those of us who have arrived in the last few centuries have been wittingly or unwittingly part of a huge devastation to the original peoples, including driving them from their legitimate lands, imposing unjust laws upon them, and tearing families apart. In these times, we seek to understand and repair our relationships. It's not easy, and the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples must constantly fight for their rights and their land. When we give a land acknowledgement, we speak from where we are. I am speaking from one of the brick homes in Toronto, Ontario, names that derive from original Indigenous languages, on a very rainy day. The lilacs have just finished their blooming. This area is the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. The land that this city is spread across was obtained from them with varying degrees of legality, interpretation, and understanding under a number of treaties. Before these treaties were made with colonial governments, the Indigenous peoples of this area had devised their own treaty, the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, to care for the land and to share its resources in peace. It is an example for us all, in particular as we focus on the critical issue of climate change and a sustainable future. All of us here in this gathering today take responsibility for the land that we are on and the environment. And as we do so, we respectfully acknowledge the historic and the continuing deep knowledge of and care for the land by its First Peoples and their present role in fighting the climate crisis. Miigwech.
Thank you. Thank you, Marian, very much. The next two presenters that we have, one of whom I know better than the other, are both distinguished in their fields and longtime activists and thought leaders in Canada around the climate change and climate movement. The first person I'd like to introduce is Dr. Louise Comeau. She's a senior advisor with Reclimate, which is where I spend most of my time, at least during the day. And she's also a member of the Federal Net Zero Advisory Body. So Louise has more than 30 years experience in climate change policy, communications, and solutions related advocacy and program. She holds a doctorate in environmental management focused on environmental ethics and behavior change from the University of New Brunswick. Our other speaker is Ken Johnson, Dr. Ken Johnson, who also holds a PhD, and he's a climate activist with SCAN Ottawa. He was an epidemiologist with the Public Health Agency of Canada until Prime Minister Harper got rid of him and 2,000 other scientists or scientists. He was the co-founder of Below 2 Degrees Celsius or below2c.org and was the co-host of the Time for Action, which is a series of 25 weekly webinars deep in the COVID epidemic on crucial aspects of climate action with a number of great Canadian climate authors and activists. Ken will be presenting some of the work that was originally pulled together by David Robertson. Unfortunately, David was unable to join us this evening, so Ken is jumping in and taking over on his behalf. David Robertson is with Seniors for Climate Action now. He's the chair of SCAN's Ontario project. He's also active in TER, so that's the Toronto East Residents for Renewable Energy. He's a researcher, educator, and longtime activist. So over to you, Ken, and thank you both for the presentations you're about to give.
Thanks, Amber. Why seniors? Why now? First of all, I'd just like to thank David. He just had a personal problem and just today decided that he could not do it, so I was asked to step in. Any problems with the presentation are my fault, and how good it is his because he made up all the slides. Scientists expressed despair over the state of the climate. Just a few weeks ago, the Guardian newspaper polled 400 senior climate scientists and 80% of them concluded that we had crashed through the 1.5 degrees guardrail already and are headed for a catastrophic level of heating of 2.5 degrees or higher. Many expressed personal anguish at the lack of climate action, not surprisingly, especially if they've been in the trenches for a long time. Next slide, Eric, please. And of course, we hear more severe climate events every day. Records are shattered. Severe weather events are unprecedented. They're in the news every night now, and the damage is unimaginable in some places. There is talk of climate chaos, catastrophes, disasters, and calamities. Of course, we've had unprecedented amount of wildfires, flooding, droughts, and of course, the wildfires in Canada last year were unprecedented and maybe even worse this year. We're up against a triad of perils, a climate emergency getting ever more urgent, the fossil fuel industry that is reneging on commitments and pushing back against climate action with major disinformation campaigns, and governments who too often deny, delay, or best dither at the margins. And in Canada, you're well aware of which ones are doing what. The going is tough. Odds are stacked against us, The obstacles to climate action seem insurmountable on some levels, and the task seems overwhelming. However, global ambition has gone way up on renewables. At the last climate conference, there was a commitment to triple renewables by 2030, and that's within reach. Unfortunately, you wouldn't feel that in Canada, given what Doug Ford and Danielle Smith have done lately. However, there's 22 countries that are already have more prospective utility scale and solar and wind projects than is needed to meet their existing 2030 target. Next slide. Solar is now being installed faster than any technology in history. In India, of course, the big players are the ones that matter the most. India is one of those. It's building the largest hybrid solar and wind park in the world, 30 gigawatts. China has an unprecedented expansion in solar, and by 2025, it may have increased the amount of solar around the world by something like 85%. Next. And just on Saturday in California, wind, water, and solar provided all of the energy needed during the whole day to run the 5th largest economy in the world, California. Next slide. Up against all that, well, we've got stubborn hope, the bunch of us who are putting this together, and all of you have thankfully decided to join us. Battered optimism and determination to demand an extraordinary change in the pace of climate action. And I'm wearing my emissions cap that someone gave me, because right now, one of the things we could be pushing for, or have been pushing for, is a federal cap on emissions that would impact on the particularly the oil and gas industry in the tar sands. So the emission cap is part of that. Next, please. Why seniors? Why now? Seniors are considered a demographic time bomb, as you all know. Here's the headlines. Demographic time bomb is now ticking, according to the Hamilton Spectator. The demographic time bomb has arrived, according to the National Post. Next slide. The rapid growth of Canada's senior population is one of the most significant demographic trends in the country's history. People 65 and over represent Canada's fastest growing age group. Our numbers are from the last 5 years. Canadians 65 and over rose 18%, the second largest increase in 75 years. And the highest increase was between 2011 and 2016, when we increased in numbers by more than 20%. So the trend is all up. 2023, we comprised 19.3% of Canadians. By 2030, it'll be 22%. And if you include people there's over 7.5 million people aged 65 and over, another 2.5 million aged 60 to 65, meaning that over 10 million Canadians are 60 or older now. Now that represents 25% of the population, but almost 30% of the voters, if you just take voting age people. So we're an incredibly important dynamic politically. So sorry, back one there, Eric, please. The demographic bomb has significant implications. We hear about the strain an aging population puts on the healthcare system. We hear about intergenerational wealth transfer. We hear about the dependency ratios are getting out of whack for supporting the older people. We hear about labor force with more retiring than entering. What if we change the storylines? Instead of the usual narrative strains on the healthcare system, labor markets, and support and dependency ratios, what if the story was about a tremendous cohort of people with knowledge and skills, years of experience, and who have the time, energy, financial resources, and determination to tackle the climate crisis? That's what this is about. Older Canadians are a growing economic and politically influential group. They are staying healthier, active, and involved for longer. People are now not only living longer, but also reaching old age in better health and education than ever before. They are now a formidable segment of the population, and climate action cannot succeed without their participation and engagement, according to the UN. What if our story wasn't about the burden or strains, but about the agency and legacy to pressure governments, confront big oil, support communities, stand with our youth, to learn from Indigenous climate leadership, that for seniors, issues of health, housing, and cost of living are irrevocably linked to the climate crisis. The fastest growing segment of the population is made up of those 80 and over. When it comes to the fossil fuel industry, that means we can be old and in their way for a very long time. 10 million seniors, just imagine if just 5% of those which is 500,000 seniors. What if we know that, what if that number was engaged? And we know that that's only 1 in 20, and we know way more than 1 in 20 are concerned about climate. But imagine if we could achieve committed and coordinated action for the climate from 5% of seniors, even 4%, 3%, or even 1% of seniors. That would represent 100,000 people. There is strength in numbers. Seniors are on the move. In Switzerland, that last picture was pictures of women from Switzerland, 2,000 of them, who demanded that Switzerland do more about climate change because they were failing to protect seniors, in particular, from heat waves and other climate risks. The European Court of Human Rights found that Switzerland failed to implement sufficient climate policies, violating the women's human rights. And usually in the European Court, it usually has impacts on all the other countries within the European Union. Next slide. Third Act in the US has been an inspiration for us to start a similar organization in Canada. Bill McKibben is a co-founder of that, the co-founder of 350.org that many of you would know about. In 3 years, they've managed to assemble 70,000 seniors. They've done die-ins, rocking chair sit-ins, Citibank campaign, a Costco campaign, and the Stop the LNG campaign was successful in having the Biden administration put a pause on the approval of new LNG terminals in the Gulf of Mexico. They took on some of the biggest, nastiest, richest, most powerful forces in the world and did an amazing job. Indigenous elders on the front lines of the climate emergency are, of course, a very important ally to us. There's strength in numbers, the contagious power of winning some successes, and to those we add the resilience and perseverance and determination we learned from Indigenous elders on the front lines of the climate emergency on Turtle Island and around the world. Thank you very much. I'd like to now turn, oh no, sorry, that's not the end of it. Seniors Day seemed to encourage some pretty tacky clip art, according to David. I'd have to agree. Next slide. Federal government website for seniors says, you know, it's easy to show your respect and gratitude. Say hi to a senior, say thank you to a senior, run an errand for a senior, help some with outdoor chores, take a walk together, all good things. And here's a former minister of a minister of seniors handing out flowers, and I think in an old age home. Seniors are thanked by Canada. It's October. Seniors Day is October 1st. Thanks, but we'd rather climate action. Saying hello is a beginning. Getting flowers is always nice. A thank you is always appreciated. But what we really want is action on climate. Decisive and dramatic climate action for ourselves, but more importantly for those who inherit the earth we leave behind. So why seniors? Why now? It's time to repurpose, rebrand, appropriate Seniors Day for 2024 to be a day for seniors climate action, because later is too late. Okay, I'd like to now turn over the podium to Louise Como. Louise, take over.
Thank you so much, Ken. That was a great introduction. What I want to do is give you a bit of an overview of who are these seniors we're trying to speak to and who we'd like to engage and rally around our October 1st takeover of Seniors Day, which just as I find so inspiring. I want to just give you a bit of insight into the results from a survey that was done last November of 6,000 Canadians, of which 1,034 were 65 years of age and over. So that's a pretty good sample and a good way for us to understand what might be some of the opportunities that we have and some of the barriers that we might want to consider, and provide some hints and tips about how we might want to speak to our friends and colleagues and draw them into this exciting opportunity. The first thing I'll say is that not all seniors see the world in the same way. I'm sure you know. But it's always important to remind ourselves, because we are, particularly the folks on the call, probably all similarly thinking about things, the way of the world and so on. What we find is this interesting tension in perspectives among the seniors population that are more likely than other age cohorts to want more equality between men and women, who worry about racism and are more trusting of institutions, governments, health professionals, and mainstream media. These are all important aspects for us to be thinking about as we campaign. But there's also a worry among the same group of Canadians about the decline in traditional family values, worries about rising immigration, and a worry that perhaps we're going too far with some of what we call the woke politics and political correctness. This is a tension, if you will, in terms of how people see the world. But on the opportunity side, seniors feel more secure. They have more capacity to engage, especially if we approach them with the right approach. And that's because, as we're likely familiar with, we're at a stage of life where we are less stressed than other age cohorts, less distracted by cost of living, for example, housing accessibility, fear of job loss. We're more worried about healthcare. When you ask people to rank their top of mind issues right now, you'll find it's the mid-career families with kids and mortgages that are the most concerned about cost of living and housing accessibility, for example. We're less likely to feel that we're being left behind or to say that we're having difficulty meeting monthly expenses. In other words, seniors have capacity that younger people with families and mortgages don't have right now. And that opens up an opportunity for us to fill a gap, if you will. We're also more likely than other age cohorts to say that we're worried about climate change and the environment. We are statistically more inclined to believe that climate change and extreme weather are threats, that climate change is the primary driver of extreme events, that climate change and the environment are important and are very concerned about climate change itself. So in that most extreme concern category. But we also see climate change as more of a threat to other countries and future generations. And that's a bit of a tension as well between our concern about climate change and this perception that it won't affect me directly. Like other Canadians, 6 out of 10 seniors feel ashamed at what we are leaving behind for future generations, angry about how we have treated the environment, and scared when they think about the future of the planet. There's also a tension between optimism and some policy aversion. We don't like certain policies. We might have heard some people complain about the carbon price, for example. We're less likely to believe that lowering our environmental impact, however, will take up too much of our time. We feel like we've got some time to contribute to that. At the same time, there's some tension between our capacity, our own personal capacity, and a comfort, if you will, with existing industries. We tend to see that the oil and gas sector is important to our communities. We want taxes removed from home heating fuels, for example. Few think that the carbon tax is fair and that it spurs innovation. However, the good news is that there's very strong support among seniors for capping oil and gas emissions, and they place the blame on governments for not regulating corporations enough. So again, some tensions, but an opportunity. We can make connections and we can keep it personal. This is the kind of the hints about how we might engage seniors, because we have a real opportunity to engage seniors and to raise their voices on climate change. Those of us already engaged and who are ready for policy and advocacy, and I'd put most of us, I suspect, on the call today in that category, we're a particular tribe. Not every senior we're going to want to engage. If I'm thinking about that opportunity around 500,000 seniors, I think that's a worthy goal. Not every senior is going to be in the same place that we might be, those of us who've been engaged longer or have been thinking about it more deeply. And so there's some important tips and tricks that we might want to think about as we're trying to talk to other seniors about our concerns, our personal concerns about climate change. And that is to make climate change relevant to them in their day-to-day life right now. And one of the areas that seniors say they're the most concerned about is their health. We want to make climate change something that they understand through the health lens, but also through the potential risks to the healthcare system itself and to their personal security. These are issues of concern to seniors more than affordability, as numbers show in a survey. That's not to say that all seniors don't have worries about affordability. We need to make the link between climate change and the personal health risks like heat waves, air quality, as we saw last year from wildfires, and extreme weather risks, particularly for seniors who may be homebound, have mobility issues, may not have air conditioning, may not have the strong social network they need. These are all risks that we need to make more real and in terms of the now experience that we have. There's more and more research coming out on the impacts of climate change on the healthcare system itself, both in terms of the kinds of issues that doctors and the medical system are dealing with, but also the facilities themselves, the emergency capacities that they have to run in an extreme event. We need to be telling personal stories of how climate change is affecting our health right now, whether it's our own eco-anxiety, whether it's physical health or experience with heat waves and other particular events, for example. And we need to help people build their own confidence in our ability to act on climate change, to engage in climate change issues. And one of the ways that we can do that, because people trust friends and family, that means your friends and family, that they are really ready to hear from you in terms of information that you have about climate change and solutions, risks, and so on. We make climate change real by making it here and now. And so again, talking about climate change concerns with our own experiences, but also hope for the solutions. And in terms of who we should be really reaching out to, we really do want to talk to our friends and family. They do take their cue from us. They do want to know what is important to us. And when you share that in a personal way, from a values base, from a care base, people really do take that seriously. We do want to talk to community leaders about the fact that we have expectations of their performance and their actions on climate change, not just the political leaders, but actual community leaders, people that we trust in our communities, people who we think are respected in our communities. We do want to think about encouraging people to vote with climate change in mind, and to share our experience with solutions. There are serious impacts right now that we're seeing in the research that we do at Reclimate around what we call solutions denialism, misinformation and disinformation about climate change solutions, like renewables won't work and heat pumps don't work and your EV will never get you where you need to go, those kinds of things. And to the degree that we have the ability to engage in some of these solutions, telling stories to others about what's working, what we've learned, what challenges, what opportunities we have is really, really powerful. And I want to point out, for many of us who are more on the activist end of this, ideas like Ken mentioned around the cap on the oil and gas emissions is a really important advocacy opportunity. But that kind of focus misses a really huge cohort of people in Canada who are nature forward. They are people who really care about nature first. They're not thinking so much about climate change. They are thinking about their local park, the favorite places, the nature that sustains them. They are thinking about how much they love to hunt and fish and hike and camp. Those people need to be engaged in climate change through the nature protection point of view and their love of nature. I just want to point out that we are potentially the last generation of people, of Canadians and people around the world who are nature embedded. We grew up playing outside, where generations after us have not. We have a connection to nature that other generations do not, particularly Generation Z and millennials. And so that connection that we have to nature is something that we can share as a love of nature with people around us, helping get our grandkids and kids outside, those kinds of things. And it's a way to engage people who aren't necessarily thinking about climate change from a policy point of view. They're very worried about wildfires. They're very worried about the impacts of climate change. They're just not thinking about the oil and gas sector. Next slide, please. So just to summarize, because later really is too late, I had a kind of a weird insight there the other day, and it won't be familiar to all of you, that I'm working on climate change targets and timelines that I don't expect to be alive for. And I find that inspiring. And so thinking about our generational legacy, let's just summarize the key points. Our kids and their kids are distracted by day-to-day living concerns. It is our time, it is our capacity, it is our resources, and it is our energy that can solve climate change. Solving climate change is a love story if we touch the heart of others with shared values. Once seniors can see the why now element of climate change, I think they'll be more likely to engage on the how of what they might do. For some of us, that is going to be through a pathway that we know from research is really important, and that is polluter pay. Polluters need to pay, whether it's to be regulated, whether it's to pay carbon charges, because later is too late. That has to happen now. And that's important for the already engaged. For those just engaging, connecting climate change to love of nature, nature protection, outdoor activities we love, gardening and hiking and so on is an important pathway. Thank you.
I did tear up. I'm not going to say that I almost teared up. I did tear up thinking about how important this moment is. And thank you a lot, Ken and Louise, for sharing that with us. So now it's over to Rolly and Nick. And so Rolly and Nick are both on the steering committee for Seniors for Climate Action, or Seniors for Climate. And they've been working hard behind the scenes on both organizing this meeting, as well as I can hear just in the warm up for this meeting, a whole lot of things. So I'm going to hand it over to them, and they'll talk through kind of the background on this initiative, as well as some of the work that's underway and what will be around the October 1st date. So over to you, Rolly.
Thank you, Amber. And wow, these were two great presentations, Ken and Louise. You're going to be a tough act to follow, but I shall do my best. My role is to talk to you about how we got here, basically. So my slides are entitled The History of Seniors for Climate. And the idea or the notion of a Canada-wide seniors climate group really started back in 2022, when an Ontario climate groups network, basically made up of about 12 or so climate groups, not all seniors, but climate groups in Ontario, entertained the idea of creating a national seniors movement. So it was an aspirational goal. It was like what if we could do that? What would that mean? And with the support of Climate Legacy coming from its January 2023 roundtable, we started to move in that direction. Liaison committee with members of both groups began meeting in 2023. There were a lot of meetings and discussions throughout the entire year. Well, actually, there's a slide that covers this later, but we also reached out to talk to personal contacts across the country, just to feel the territory about, whether this was a good idea or not. And the first, I think, critical meeting was in October of 2023, when we met, the steering committee met with a nationwide group of about 20 or so Canadians from across the land. And as I started to say a while ago, during the summer of 2023, we reached out to test the market and got a very, very positive response. And slowly, the rationale for a Canada-wide seniors climate group became very clear. And I think these three bullets are important. This is what we were hearing out there. The climate movement in Canada has not succeeded in convincing our political leaders that we're in a climate emergency that demands a more ambitious response. A lot of people, a lot of groups, dozens of thousands of seniors working on the climate movement. But again, as individual groups, it was not be able to convey that message. The urgency of the climate crisis does need a national platform, because this is beyond the reach of local groups. And as it was mentioned before by Ken, seniors have an outsized political, economic, and social power. And yes, we vote. Next slide. So the next critical moment was in November of 2023. Steering committee released a report which it brought back to the nationwide group. And that report highlighted the next few points. The focus was to be on actions versus building a new organization. There was really no appetite to build a new organization. The appetite was for action. We needed action in 2024. And we came up with the name Seniors for Climate, followed by Later is Too Late. And in early 2024, we resolved then at the steering committee level that we would try to organize a Canada-wide Seniors Day of Climate Action on Canada's National Seniors Day and begin the process of building support. And as David Robertson, who's not with us tonight, said at one time in one of our meetings, we should try to repurpose Canada's National Seniors Day and make a Climate Seniors Day out of it. And that's precisely what we're doing. So the goal is, of course, to act Canada-wide on climate with actions that demonstrate our growing concern about climate breakdown and the climate crisis, and our desire to build or to reshape a healthy environment for future generations. 4 of the original members of the OCGN network actually went on to become sponsors of Seniors for Climate, and those were Climate Legacy, SCAN, CALL, and GASP. And the 5th sponsor is the David Suzuki Foundation. Next slide. So this brings us to where we are. And we now have a steering committee with representation from across Canada. We have members from BC, Alberta, Manitoba, Ontario, Maritimes, Suzuki Elders. We do not have someone from Saskatchewan yet. From Quebec, we're going to reach out to our contacts in Quebec. And Quebec in many ways is ahead of any other province in Canada. But certainly we want to let Quebec contacts know what we're doing, and perhaps there will be collaborative initiatives undertaken there. We're also recognizing the importance of the First Nation and the Indigenous groups, and we're going to show support for the September 30th National Day of Reconciliation, Truth and Reconciliation. So we're endeavoring to, again, reach out to the Indigenous communities. As we are with youth, we're going to be encouraging centers which are doing an action on October 1 to bring in the youth organizers in their locality. Here in Ottawa, for example, we'll be working with Fridays for Future. And of course, working with climate justice groups and recognizing the fact that many people who are suffering from the effects or the impacts of climate change are the ones who were the least responsible for producing the problems that we have today. So we have working groups that are set up. We have 3 major working groups: outreach, webinars, resources, and admin. We have regional hubs that are in the process of forming. Some of them are already established. We have a website. We have social media accounts. We have a webmail portal. We have resources that include a toolkit, 1-pager, and we want to add to that. We've come up with a $15,000 budget. And today we launched our crowdfunding page, and we are doing crowdfunding with a group called Small Change Funding, a Small Change Fund, I'm sorry. So today, not only are we launching the project, the Seniors for Climate October 1 project, but we're also launching our fundraising campaign. And as I've mentioned, it's a crowdfunding campaign with Small Change Fund. Our target is $15,000 to match our budget. You can reach, you can go to the next slide if you wish. Yes, so this is the what the fundraising page looks like. And there's a link there that will be shared by Michael later. And I've taken the liberty of doing a bit of an editorial comment on donations here. So I'm sure my colleagues on the steering committee will forgive this departure maybe from the agenda. I've been a climate activist now for about 20 years, and I really, really believe that seniors, as seniors, we're being called to action. I really believe that. It's happening all around the world, as Ken was mentioning. And the call to action really is coming from youth. It's coming from our kids and grandkids and from youth all over the world. youth is counting on us, and all of those, all of those who will follow us are counting on us. And as seniors, we are 10 million strong in Canada, and surely out of that, 71% of us are concerned, and some very deeply concerned about the climate. But only 20% of us are actually taking action. And I know we can do a whole lot better than that. I don't know if you're like me, but I was going to say when I'm old and gray, I'm already there. But if you're like me, and if your grandkids ask you years from now, what did you do when you knew? What did you do about climate? I want to be able to look at them in the eyes and say, I did everything I could. So I think we're all in that particular boat right now. There are many ways to act. And one of the ways, of course, is by making donations. Not everyone can be on the front lines, but so we're asking you to take a good look at making a donation. The size doesn't matter. I think it's important to realize that there are costs involved with running this program. The money is raised will go towards paying for the website and the support of the website, the ongoing expansion and development of that. Also for administrative support for all the work that needs to be done. And of course for hosting costs, as well as advertising or training for social media. For example, someone was asking if we're going to do videos and so on. Well, perhaps we will, and if we do, we might need some training for that. So this is a call to action. And on the web page, you will find the donation buttons. And we ask you to be generous. And if we raise more than 15,000, then we can do more. So that will complete my portion of the tonight's program. And I will pass it over to my colleague on the steering committee and the coordinating committee, Nick DiCarlo. Nick.
Thanks, Rolly. So you've heard a bit about the potential of seniors in terms of the demographic. You've heard a bit about the where seniors are at, and they're concerned about the climate. And now we've heard a bit about the history of how we got to this point in terms of this call for action on October 1st. Now we want to talk a bit about what we've done so far and where we hope to go. And there has been a lot of work done. But in some ways we're just getting started, but we have come a long way. And it hasn't been by ourselves. It's been with the support of people like the people here today. So when we set our objectives, when we started out to call the day on October 1st, we set an objective. The objective was to maximize the number of seniors in locations having events on October 1st across Canada. We want to show as much as possible that across the land, seniors are declaring their support for climate action, that seniors care. And we're joining with others in the climate movement to fight for climate action. We want more seniors who are not involved with this, Rolly just talked about, to join that movement, and we want to make that a force that joins with the broader mass movement, environment movement that will bring the change we need. Next slide, please. Sorry, 1 second here. So what have we done so far? Well, we've done a lot of work looking outwards. We've reached out across Canada. We've confirmed locations with planning underway, and we've begun to build support for our internal ability to provide support and capabilities to do that. Next slide, please. We reached out to a number of organizations. We contacted individual seniors climate groups, seniors organizations of broader categories. We got in touch with environmental groups, and we approached social justice and faith groups. Next, please. And when we did that outreach, what did we find? Well, we found we got a warm reception from organizations and groups who have stepped forward to support the initiative. And we've received support from individuals who have taken on the challenge of initiating events in their community. Here's some examples of organizational support. Among seniors climate groups, we got support from Elders for Climate Sanity, for our grandchildren, and perhaps some of the others who are attending the meeting today. We had support endorsements from organizations like Congress of Union Retirees of Canada, 350.org, Environmental Defense, Citizens Climate Lobby, and there are more coming in. I'm sure I've missed some of the ones that have already declared their support. Next, please. One of our main focuses has been to confirm locations. We want to have as many events as possible. We want to make sure that everyone knows how many locations are already confirmed. A big part of this initiative is to know that in each of our communities, we're not alone, but we're part of a much bigger movement. We already have some confirmed locations, and as it stands right now, there's 18 or 19 confirmed, and we're just beginning the process. But we are looking for more. We want to double or maybe triple that number. Perhaps you're interested, and if you are, we are here to provide some help. Next, please. If you want to join in, there's lots of options. There's things you can do on October 1st. We want you to know that however small or big your event is, it is important. We want you to know that whether you are an experienced event organizer or doing this for the first time, we will provide support. There's lots of activities, big and small, that you can choose from. Examples: traditional rallies, marches, demonstrations, festive events with street theater, songs, artwork, small events like kitchen table discussions, backyard gatherings, barbecues, press conferences to announce something that's special that you think that you want to highlight and deal with in your community, putting a resolution before municipal council leading up to the October 1st event. Next slide. Meeting with elected officials, leafleting, distribution of flyers at farmers markets, shopping centers, public gatherings, actions that symbolize who we are, like the rocking chair kind of action, or standing together with our grandchildren. Maybe you have other ideas. There's lots of room for creativity. Next slide, please. And we can help you do it. We'll provide some materials. Examples, we can provide toolkits and artwork that can be used for signs and social media. We have a toolkit that can help you get the word out for events leading up to the day of action. For example, how to contact media, how to do press releases. We have templates for flyers and postcards. We have backgrounders for specific themes. For example, we could provide information on climate impacts on seniors, such as extreme heat, emissions from wildfires, and the future of our food system. Also, you'll hear later about our plan to hold monthly consult and support meetings. So those of the locations where events are happening, we want to meet with, once a month, starting next month, to suit your agenda, meet your needs, to hear from you, share ideas, and more. Next, please. Which brings me to the people who are doing the real work on the ground. Here's some of the people you will meet in those community meetings or those cross-country meetings. Let's start with Paul from Antigonish. Paul, what do you got planned?
We want to bring the focus, of addressing climate change seriously to the, to everyone in our area. Here in Nova Scotia, the provincial government decided not to lead the Coastal Protection Act implementation. They dropped the ball on municipalities and private landowners. There's an organization here in Antigonish called the Antigonish Climate Action Hub that reaches out to everyone concerned with all aspects of addressing climate change and environmental issues. We're currently entertaining a number of ideas to engage the public and would welcome more like-minded members. We want to encourage action that will garner political support.
Thanks, Paul. And now to Pat Wally from Winnipeg. What are your plans, Pat?
Hi, everyone. Well, Winnipeg has booked the Forks for October 1st. That's where the Red and Assiniboine rivers meet and where people have been meeting for thousands of centuries, or 4 centuries. We're planning a climate expo with information on solutions that individuals, corporations, and governments can use so that we can have faster and better climate solutions. We've started reaching out to groups that can provide displays and information. representatives from the city, province, and municipal government, federal governments. Local entertainment groups, the Raging Grannies are already confirmed, and we have others in the works. And we're planning to send save the date information out to all local seniors groups, climate groups, and anybody else we can think of. So we've been working really hard to get this going, and it plans to be quite an exciting day. We all also have been talking to folks outside the city and hope to have at least a couple of events outside of Winnipeg.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, and now finally to Marlon Horsdale in Salt Spring Island, BC. Marlon.
Yeah, hi, thank you. We don't have everything all pinned down yet, but we decided that the most effective thing would be to focus on one aspect of the problem, and we picked the government subsidies to the fossil fuel corporations, which is so stupid. So our theme is stop the subsidies, fund the people. And Valdi, who is a folk singer that some of you may know, is going to write a song on that theme. And on October 1st, we're going to gather in Ganges, which is the main village on Salt Spring. I hope lots of people will come. We don't know yet. And Valdi will lead us in singing the song. And then we will email videos of the video of us all singing or bellowing or whatever to all the MPs across the country and our MLAs in BC. So that's as far as we are at this point.
Very cool. Okay, so those are 3 examples. There's a lot more out there. The question was about how do you mobilize, how to get people to turn out and seniors to turn out. And it seems to me one of the things I've run into in my discussions in seniors' homes and other places, the question is asked, well, how can we possibly win this? How can we possibly take on this big problem? It's not that people aren't concerned about it. It's just they feel like, it's unbeatable. And the answer is, I think, it's in our numbers. It's in whether we're united. It's in whether we build community. It's in whether we have solidarity. That's the answer to the question of how we can win. And tonight, there's been a real demonstration of that kind of potential among seniors. And some of that solidarity, people talk about seniors being isolated, and that's true. That's exactly the thing about community, building a sense of community among seniors, that we can solve some of those problems, and that will help to mobilize. It will get us organized together. And this one day is a beginning. Tonight was amazing in terms of starting to build a community of seniors, of people across the country. And that when we say that, we're not saying we're isolating ourselves from others. We're saying we're joining with others. We have a role to play. And to a large extent, seniors are cast aside. We're looked at as, well, you've done your job. Thanks very much. We want to treat you nicely. We'll give you some flowers, as was demonstrated earlier. But to take us seriously is a different matter. And in fact, we are serious. And the other thing that's demonstrated tonight is the enormous wealth of talent among seniors. It's huge. The potential is incredible. And what we have to do is build that community that will draw out that talent, that will bring people together, that will come up with all the kind of creative ideas we had this evening. And that's where we're going to actually really succeed. That's where the potential is. And that's what we can offer to youth, is that we build that solidarity and join with them and establish, and with others, with First Nations, with people in disadvantaged people across the country, that we join together. We'll join with them. We can mobilize ourselves. We can play a role. We can be actually very significant for us. And that's the idea. And I really want to stress that sense of community and solidarity. And thanks to everybody for coming out tonight.
I'm going to just go on a limb here. If we have David Suzuki with his hand up, I'm just wondering if that's an opportunity. I'd love to just create a couple of minutes, if that's possible, to allow you to speak, David.
I didn't know your hand was up.
I didn't want to jump in any queue. This is the first time I've attended this meeting since I met Nick through Scan, and I'm astounded at what's going on. Let me, I never I see now that money is an issue that you're going to need as a national organization. I'm a big fan of Terry Fox and what Terry Fox did. You know, starting when he put his leg into the water off Newfoundland, there was no one there, and he limped across the country, and you know, and you saw something build that is absolutely incredible. And I've tried a number of attempts. I did a tour of Canada through the 13 offices of CPAWS, Parks and Wilderness Society. We raised a lot of money. We did a Blue Dot tour trying to get a constitutional change to make the right to a healthy environment a part of our Constitution. Well, it's finally not in the Constitution, but 7 years later, we got something in there. But I had this idea, this is years ago now, where my daughter bicycled across Canada in the year 2000. And I thought, God, you know, as an old man, I could bicycle across Canada, starting in Newfoundland. And the idea was that as I biked, I'd be met by kids on their bikes at the edge of towns or cities, and then they would lead me into their city hall, where they would welcome me and tell me about the things they love about their area and the things that they're not happy about. And I might talk and then leave. The idea of being to try to raise a movement. This is very exciting to me now, but to see what's happened in a short period of time, where the Seniors for Climate now, it's just, it seems to me, exploded. And I gave up the idea of the bike quite a while ago. Then I thought it went through an electric bike, and then it was a electric motorcycle. All of those I've abandoned, but I do have the possibility of an electric car that I could drive. I'm just wondering whether it might be possible to galvanize people across the country. I could see bringing together a lot of Indigenous people that I'm involved with. Youth, I've been supporting the Climate Emergency Unit, Seth Klein's group. But now I think seniors could be a really galvanizing thing. And I would like to suggest, if it was of interest, that we talk about a cross-country tour in some way, that I'd be willing to put my full time into to help raise money both for local communities and as well as a national organization. Unfortunately, I thought retirement meant that, oh God, now I can spend all my time being a grandfather. But thanks to Zoom, my time is, I think I wouldn't have enough time before October 1st, which I'm really excited about that possibility. If there are spotty things that I could do to help you before October 1st, I'd be happy to do that. I'm really blown away by the fact Peter Robinson, who was the executive director of the David Suzuki Foundation for 10 years, he's retired on Main Island, and he asked if I would come and give a talk and help fundraise. This is a tiny island with 1,600 people, permanent residents, and they raised thousands of dollars. I was absolutely astounded. And I think there is potential because people are very concerned about the issue of climate. I mean, you have to be living under a rock if you don't know that something queer is happening. Anyway, I think this is a galvanizing opportunity. Whether I'm involved or not, I don't know. But I think there's an opportunity to make a global movement and really raise a lot of interest and I think money. But I'd be happy to talk to anybody about my ideas in more detail. Thank you. Thank you for letting me jump the queue like that.
No, that's great. Appreciate it. And Diane in the chat already has some ideas about a bike relay across the country. So, you know, this may happen.
Great.
We'll take that all into account when we sort of analyze the results of this meeting, and everybody's going to hear back from us. So it should
And
be.
we'll be back in touch with David, I'm sure. I'm going to pass the baton now to Keith Kennedy with Suzuki Elders. He's going to show you the map.
Hello, folks. This is Keith Kennedy. I'm in Niagara-on-the-Lake, and I'm happy to be here representing the Suzuki Elders, which we have now from coast to coast, helping us build this important climate day of action on National Seniors Day. As a geologist by origin, I couldn't do anything without a map. So that's why I'm the map person at the moment. And it's really great to see the enthusiasm from Paul with Suzuki Elders in Antigonish, with Pat in Winnipeg, and with Marlon across the country. What we're trying to do is just illustrate as we grow and as we build what's happening and what can happen. So it's all volunteers at the moment. We're happy to be here. We're happy to help. I've spent 50 years working in water resource solutions and geological settings. But my passion is to try and come up with good solutions. We know there are things that we can be doing, as Ken and Louise pointed out earlier, and we're here to help across the nation.
We're going to go now to put the map back up again, because what we want to do now, and some people have asked about this, we want people to step up and to, and this time you can put up your virtual hand, and we will recognize you if you're at this point ready to say, yeah, I'd like to do something in my community, and willing to attach a name and an email to that, or a name to that, because we have your emails. Then we can actually take this map that's on the screen now and start adding a community. So that's where we're at.
I'm very involved with our climate action group here, and we are all seniors. It's very difficult to get youth involved, but we do really have a lot of trouble getting more seniors to actually do more than hike in the mountains. So I would be happy to organize something in Penticton. I put my information in there, so Penticton, BC.
Okay.
So we'll do something. I don't know what it is. If it's just me sitting in front of the bank with my rocking chair, I'll do that.
We'll accept that, but I'm sure you'll probably come up with something else too. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much, Lori.
Next we have Rob Miller.
Hi, so I'm in Calgary with a group called Eco Elders for Climate Action. And we had a meeting on Friday and talked about this event that we want to plan for. And it's pretty much, I think, very strong support. So we would like to be involved in organizing something for Calgary. I do have to get to another some training at 6 o'clock, so I'm a bit late. But Brian Patterson has our contact info, and if there's any other Eco Elders participating in this, I'm sure they could maybe offer some more information. But I just wanted to let you know that
that's great.
We would like to participate.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Adrena McCormack is next.
Hello, I'm calling from Powell River, BC, on the traditional territories of the Tla'amin people. And I am the chair of our local chapter of the Council of Canadians. I can't commit my group now, but I can commit to bring a proposal to our next meeting and to try also to engage 2 or 3 local environmental groups that we are in touch with and have worked together with on other activities, such as we had a film showing for Sue Big Oil, for example. So I can't commit right now that we would definitely have something on October 1st, but I think people would be very amenable to such a proposal.
Great. Thank you, Adrena.
All right, next is Sheila Levy.
Hi, I'm very involved in the Green Party in Saanich Gulf Islands, Elizabeth May's riding, and I'm sure they'll be very interested in this. I'll bring it to their attention. We have a lot of volunteers, and certainly we can get a huge crowd out on October 1.
Great. Thank you, Sheila.
Okay, Pat Smith is next, please.
Pat Smith from Barrie, Ontario, Barrie Scan, and we would definitely like to have an activity, and we are the place where Andrea Kanjan, the Minister of the Environment, has her headquarters. So we will try to think of something to do to make Andrea Kanjan uncomfortable in Ontario.
Sounds good. Thanks, Pat.
Next is Dave Gregory.
I'm in Nelson, which is in southeastern rural part of BC in the West Kootenays. And we have a climate hub here, West Kootenay Climate Hub. We also have a chapter of the Council of Canadians. And obviously I can't speak for either of them definitely at this point, but I can take this as a proposal to both of them. And I think that there is an excellent chance that there will be people who are willing to do a demonstration of some kind in Nelson.
Great. Thank you very much, Dave.
Next, we have Carmen Loisel.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, and we have a small fledgling group. We have been meeting and mainly doing some education, but I definitely, and I know some of our members at least want to do something on October 1st. And so it probably won't be really big, but we've been trying to get in touch with some of the youth groups, and we'll be getting in touch with some seniors organizations. And I actually just noticed one of the members of our local Council of Canadians, and Breezy Brian Gregg, we should chat, you and I. And I've also had a chat with Brian Patterson in Calgary, so we may be able to do something in tandem with Calgary. I don't know, we'll see. But we're definitely going to do something. Thanks so much for doing this.
Great. Great.
Barry Hellman is next.
Our group has decided to definitely be involved. We haven't made any specific plans yet, but we have our meeting tomorrow night. So hopefully with some of the great ideas I've heard tonight, we'll come up with something a bit more concrete to start our planning. Right now, we've been really involved in a campaign to prevent Enbridge from extending their gas line into one of our communities and promoting heat pumps as an alternative. So I imagine we'll kind of link it to that. But in the chat, I had put a couple of questions about one of the biggest groups of seniors in our area are the churches. So I'm wondering which specific faith groups have you been in touch with, and has any of them decided definitely to be involved? It would give us an idea of who to reach out to in our communities, because we already have really good contacts with the United Church ministers in a couple of the locations around our Truth and Reconciliation work. And my other question is regarding October 1st being the day after Truth and Reconciliation Day. And that's a bit of a concern for me because we do major organizing around that. So has there been any thought given to how do we not detract from that, but actually build on it and make the links? And has there been any outreach to elders groups in First Nations?
Okay, so those two questions, they're both very important, and they do have answers. We'll definitely be able to answer that in the follow-up email that you'll get soon. Okay, but thanks for stepping up with location as well. That's great.
Victor Dorian is next.
Pardon me, did you say call my name, Victor?
Yes, I did, Victor.
Okay, hi everyone. Well, I'm from Edmonton and I recognized Carmen's name, and I'll give you a call, Carmen. But if there's anyone else from Edmonton still online, please text me, and I'd like to create a climate conversation group just to start with. No promises for October 1st, but I need some help. I'm actually chapter leader for the Citizens Climate Lobby Edmonton chapter. And we have over 200 members, but typically only 2 people show up for our monthly meetings. So that's kind of discouraging. So I'd like to find some people to help me either organize or at the very least start some climate conversations, because that's where it starts. So if you're interested and you are in Edmonton, text me. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
Okay, Suzanne Elston is next.
Well, great, thanks so much. I'm working with a group called Climate Justice Durham, and we are everything sort of east of Toronto. It's a big Durham region, for those of you who don't know Southern Ontario. We are youth-led, but we also have a lot of really good old gray guard in there, and I'm quite sure that we can get on board with this. We're really good at doing demonstrations and getting politicians and attention. Right now, we're working with our local MPP to try to get some kind of heat maximum regulation, whether it be health or it be building code or whatever, because apparently there isn't one. So we have minimums, but we don't have heat maximums. And so I think this can really tie in with the whole seniors piece. And we need something we can get our teeth into that people can really relate to. And I think, people cooking in their homes is a really good example of how immediate climate is. I put a comment in the chat, and I just want to throw it out here now. It wasn't so much a question. There were two really serious air incidents last week. There was a Singapore airline and a Lufthansa airline. Terrible, terrible turbulence. The Singapore airline, I think, put 70 people in hospital, and they're blaming it on climate change. And there's a huge portion of the population that travels. That all they do, and these are the people who are not paying attention. So I'm wondering if there's something as seniors we can connect. There actually is a direct connection between your luxury cruises and your luxury flights and what's happening and literally killing people in the air. So I just want to put that out there. Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll add that to the ideas list. It's certainly current.
But you can put us down. Climate Justice Durham will do something.
Great. Thank you.
Tom Hetherington.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. I'm coming from Vancouver. But my background, I guess, recently is I'm been very active in Extinction Rebellion, in international way. I'm senior, obviously connected to my local community in that way as well. Have some ideas that I'm shopping around. They won't go anywhere unless somebody says it's a good idea and gets some help. One is a Letters to the Future campaign. There's been some nice video pieces about people reading letters to their grandchildren. That might be good to do as a library-based event, or post that somewhere. Another idea locally is that I have access to a hall that seats 500 people, that I'm looking for a group that wants to use that as a benefit or a fundraiser. We also, Extinction Rebellion inspired drumming group that would be willing to come and be disruptive at meetings and stuff, demonstrations, that sort of thing. Etc. So if anybody has any notion that any of those ideas have some traction, let me know, and
Sure.
we will do that. I know that the most important one, though, I'm sorry, I forgot, is to put together an approved talk, something maybe, it's, well, what's our legacy and what to do about it, and start trying to market that at senior centers and other places as little lecturettes.
Great, Tom. Those are great suggestions, and we'll make sure that you get in touch with the other folks in the Vancouver area. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sue McKenzie is next.
Hi, I'm with Climate Action Muskoka. We're in Ontario, north of Toronto, a couple hours north of Toronto, cottage country for Toronto. We've already had a CAM discussion about holding the event, and I think everybody's on board that we do something. We haven't got too many details yet. One of the things we have done is there are actually 3 groups in our riding, 3 climate groups, and we're all in touch with each other. And we have spoken with the Perry Sound people and the people, the Almaguin area, which is south of North Bay. So I was thinking you could put Climate Action Muskoka, probably because we do Gravenhurst, Bracebridge, and Huntsville, just probably put your check mark on Bracebridge because it's the center of, it doesn't mean that's where we would hold the event. I've also reached out to a couple of faith community members who were actually at the meeting tonight, and to the Canadian Federation of University Women, who are fairly active in this area too. And one or two of them were also in attendance. I haven't had time to reach out to too many other groups, but my vision is that we can get together a steering committee with representatives from a few groups in our area, and that group would come, rather than Climate Action Muskoka coming up with the actual event, that we could determine from those disparate groups what would be the most comfortable action for them, and whether each community wants to do a different type of action or whether we do one big one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wanted to just say this is a retirement area. We also have very active retired scientists, and I haven't seen that mentioned here, who are very involved in educating our municipalities around water issues. And that's another group that we should be tapping into with great expertise in the area. And also there's seniors groups, there's probus groups that are basically for recreation, but they're starting to invite speakers in who maybe are a little more politically motivated or bring issues to the fore rather than just having fun.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
Okay.
So I just quickly want to thank Keith for doing this, starting us on this mapping exercise. He's also started us on another exercise that I'll talk about in a second. So thanks for that. Now, the idea is, of course, that this was a kickoff. This was the beginning. So we have to figure out how to stay connected. So we've thought of a few ways that we're going to do this. One is, of course, you can go to the website and there's information there, and it will grow as we add more. But also there is a place where you can fill out a box and ask a question or whatever, or sign up. So you can do that as well. Our email is admin@seniorsforclimate.org. And then what we've decided we're going to do is host monthly Zoom meetings to share updates, news, for sharing ideas, just like we're doing today, but a totally open sort of concept where there's not speakers, there's not anything like that. It's all about brainstorming, getting ideas together, asking questions, trying to get answers. We're going to do that on the 4th Tuesday of each month until September at 6:30 p.m. EDT, or 3:30 in Vancouver, 7:30 Halifax. And you will get this again in the correspondence that comes after this meeting. So this is the other thanks to Keith for getting us going on these hubs. So we're establishing hubs across the country to help coordinate actions regionally. So yes, there will be these national meetings once a month. Oh, and in September, we're going to, if we need it, we'll decide this during the monthly meetings. We can have weekly meetings up to October 1st at the same time, same day and same time. So these hubs have been established and they have emails. And again, you're going to get all this information, so you don't have to write it down now, so that you can begin to build capacity at a local level. And this was, there were a lot of questions about this in the chat. Well, how do we keep connected and so on? Well, the hubs are going to be one way that locally you can stay connected and maybe coordinate some activity, or at least share ideas, which will be much more relevant to your region. So the idea in setting this all up is that there are local issues that may not resonate nationally, that are very important for communities to use as a means for tackling climate change. So that's a really sort of important element of what we're trying to do. And I think the hubs will help us connect people for regional support. So now this is an opportunity for us to hear from you. We really want you to put questions in the Q&A. And the reason for that is that we have so many people, it would be very difficult to try to do this by hands up. So I'll pass it over to Ken and Karen to start asking questions.
Okay, well, I'll start. We have quite a few in the Q&A. I'm going to start with Victor Dorian. Victor says, there are dozens or more national climate groups in Canada. How could we work together better to concentrate rather than dilute our efforts? Does anyone want to start with that? Rolly?
Yes, actually, this is one of the challenges, of course, is in the outreach working group is to reach all of these different groups, and there are a lot of climate groups across Canada, but there are not a lot of seniors climate groups. Now there are seniors in almost every climate group, and one of the challenges, of course, is to find the seniors who are involved in other groups that are not entirely seniors. But I think maybe someone from the outreach working group would be in a better position to address that. Keith, do you want to take that and explain how we're reaching out to all of the different categories of groups across Canada?
Well, thank you, Raleigh. Yes, Nick and Pat actually put together a nice categorization of where the people are in terms of seniors, in terms of seniors groups, that is a lot of retired associations of professionals and unions, and also the considerable number of probably over 600 different environmental NGOs. And one of our challenges is to make sure that we don't duplicate, but we want to also make sure that the seniors within those groups know that there is a good avenue and an opportunity to bring all of the people together on the 1st of October. So that's one of the reasons we have hubs broken down to look at a variety of different categories of seniors across Canada, yet they're also very local to the individual provinces and territories. Nick, I don't know whether if you want to follow up on that.
Yeah, just to say that this is the problem is that actually the viral movement is quite powerful. It's dispersed, and we can't solve that overnight. But what we want to do as seniors is to, as a whole, is to have some influence and have some role in that. And together, as we operate across the country, I think the potential is there to build unity and build common cause. We just have to pull together, and I think that potential is there. We can do it.
And one of the examples of how this is working out, when you go to the website and you click on sponsors and endorsers, you'll find that one of the endorsers is the Congress of Union Retirees of Canada. So as we reach out to retirees, and if they join the climate movement, there's a huge potential there as well.
There are lots of could be's, but the thing we emphasize is build alliances with other organizations, work together to create the event that suits your situation and with the people and if we can put you in touch with one of the things you'll learn by perhaps in these monthly meetings, which again we'll talk about a bit later, is what's happening in other places, what you might learn from what someone else is doing, and therefore you might incorporate in your situation. But we don't really have a prescription, but we will try and put you in touch with people in your area if you're asking, if you're and you want to know who's there.
There were a few comments about lower income seniors who have issues around poverty. Absolutely, that's what I was trying to share, that the numbers give you a large component having capacity and are at least concerned about financial issues. That doesn't mean 100% of seniors are in that position. We also know climate change itself affects the most vulnerable most. So yes, that is a clear point. The one thing I would share, however, is to some degree it's about being allies and to ensure that the most vulnerable needs and concerns are covered in the campaigns that we run. I say it that way because we've been working on energy poverty issues in a number of the organizations that I work with And it is the case that the organizations are challenged in terms of their own resources, their own needs, and so on, and that we provide them more support by carrying the ball, if you will, around bringing profile to energy poverty issues, to risks around climate change, to the most vulnerable, and so on. So I think there's a way to engage and to share and to support. It may not be that they're able and ready to just jump in and lead as some other segments of our cohorts could do. On the question of bringing groups together, the one thing I'd point out, we know from research, is that the greatest proportion of supporters and donors to environmental groups are seniors. And so it doesn't hurt as well to bring a little pressure internal to your environmental groups, where you may be providing volunteer time or charitable donations time, that you'd like to see them allocate some of their time and energy to supporting their own supporters and donors around October 1st. And so we've got some environmental groups already on side, and I think we can get a lot more, and that there should be a lot more.
Phyllis Waugh asked about the emissions cap that the Fed, as I mentioned, the Feds had announced a plan to bring it in December. Can we expect to be able to push for something better after the campaign last year? And this is exactly the kind of issue where a national effort to push that emissions cap is incredibly important, because the oil and gas industry is currently about almost 30% of our carbon footprint is just producing oil and gas in this country, and it just has to be brought under control. So I think a group like the Seniors for Climate could play an important role in pushing harder. The Liberals are obviously stalling right now because the oil and gas industry has been madly pressuring them not to bring it in or to water it down. So it's something we could definitely work on.
Thanks, Ken. Lori Goldman says, we are meeting seniors June 8 for Seniors Week. How do we get them to be involved? They are often dispassionate or deniers.
Well, that is always the challenge. We in Ottawa, I've been doing, for example, some climate conversations with small groups. And, when we expect a fair number of seniors to show up, only 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 maybe show up. So the challenge, I guess, is to, again, when I used those statistics a while ago, 71% of seniors are concerned, but only 20% show up for action. So that one of the challenges, of course, is to reach out to seniors and, as Louise pointed out, try to in sharing values and try to appeal to them based on what motivates them, what shared values we have. So usually things like love of nature, love of our grandchildren, health, the impact of for example, climate impacts on the health of seniors. I think we have to find those themes that seniors are very concerned about, and hopefully that will mobilize some of them into the climate movement.
If I could maybe add a little bit to that, when we encounter people for which denying climate change is part of their identity or part of their affiliation with a tribe, whether it's a political tribe or another a provincial tribe, a sector maybe they work with, if once it's internalized as part of their identity, that's very difficult to shift. And so the reference in the Q&A was to the dispassionate or disinterested versus the denial. I wouldn't spend as much time with folks who are in denial, because it is difficult. It's a long-term love affair. Let me tell you, you got to really invest the time to try to do that, because it's hard when their identity is engaged. But the people who are dispassionate, the people who actually haven't thought about climate change very much, the people who maybe are curious or who have questions, those are the people, the more disengaged folks are the real target or the real opportunity, because they've maybe never had an opportunity to talk about climate change or never thought about it very much, or have felt uncomfortable talking about it because it can be a politically charged conversation. Those are the people where you can really engage in the way that Rolly was talking about, in terms of shared values, shared interests, shared concerns. And doing that in a way that isn't about jumping to the most important policy issue that we might have on our mind because we're ready for that conversation. They may not be ready for that conversation. And so it is a question of judgment, and older Canadians have a lot of judgment and wisdom, and it's putting all those skills and talents that we have to work as we try to have these conversations.
Sarah Chartel makes comments on health issues, and there are a number of questions that raise the concerns about health. And she says health damage from ordinary air pollution is a topic of conversation in my community, Mimico, Ontario. We live along the QEW. I fear for my granddaughter and for myself. Dementia terrifies me, also knowing that in Toronto, about 1,400 people, mostly seniors, die from pollution-related illnesses.
If I could just jump in on that one, I'm sure others will have a comment. I actually think the air quality benefits of climate action are just not talked about enough. Electrification, one of the key solutions to climate change is electrifying our energy systems and obviously diversifying our transportation away from car culture, as was asked previously, to more public transit and active transportation. But one of the immediate benefits of electrifying public transit, electrifying our own vehicles, is the benefit to air quality. And those benefits are obviously critical to our health. And those benefits are available to us regardless of the source of the electricity you have in whatever province that you have. And even in provinces like Nova Scotia and Alberta and Saskatchewan and New Brunswick that have more fossil fuels on their system, the benefits from an electrified transportation system still give us clean air and are actually on a life cycle basis still lower than they are if we are just generating our mobility through gasoline. So as we clean up the electricity system, as we move into more efficient, more renewable systems, those benefits just even get better. But I really think we've been underselling the power of electrification by not talking about the benefits to health from air quality improvements.
Of course, the getting rid of coal in Ontario is one. It was probably I think it's the largest reduction in health effects in North America that's ever happened, and that was, of course, done in Ontario by the Liberals, getting rid of coal. But we really need to shift. Of course, it would be great to get away from car culture, but failing that, going to electric cars would make an enormous difference to the pollution levels. Someone was worried about living near the QEW, and electric cars would have a much, much smaller footprint, almost no pollution coming out of them.
Kim. Brent Elsiot says, are there plans to use seniors' fiscal clout to pressure Canadian banks to decrease financial support for the fossil fuel sector?
I can take that. One of the key messages we've identified, we have a one-pager, which will be shared. The link will be shared, and basically it identifies who we are and so on. But it also lists the primary messages that we want we want to bring forward. And one of them, of course, is to in relation to banks, pension funds, and insurance companies in the financial sector, in other words, and how that sector is fueling basically the climate crisis. And so this is one sector that seniors can really concentrate on and focus on, and have done all along with some of the RBC solidarity rallies that have taken place across Canada. So tremendous opportunity, because it's our money. The pension funds are our money, and CPP, for example, I know that SCAN had the CPP card campaign, which was very successful. And this is one element that we as seniors can really identify with. Seniors and pensions go together, and we have a powerful tool or potential to influence that sector. And working with Shift Action, for example, I don't know if all of you know what Shift Action is, but it is an organization that is focused exactly on how to shift funds away from pension funds, including the Canada Pension Fund, which is our money, but which actually owns and not only fuels the fossil fuel sector, but actually owns companies that are fossil fuel companies and pipeline companies and so on. Huge potential there.
Thanks, Rolly. Well, just while you're talking about financial issues, there are two questions in the Q&A. How will the funds raised be used? That will be a question that everybody wants to an answer to. And is there any budget to support local groups to build their actions for October 1?
That is a good question. Right now, our budget is $15,000. And to give you some of the big items in the budget, for example, the website is around $2,000. Plus there's annual hosting fees and so on. So there's about $2,000 going there. And then we have admin support. For example, Eric, who is doing all this magnificent organizing and work in the background. And so far I haven't seen one glitch. So kudos to you, Eric. We do this as volunteers, we seniors, but those who are not seniors still have to earn a living. So we need those resources because they have the talents and the energy so we have paid staff that we bring on. We will need training for social media. And again, that might involve another person to develop toolkits. So at some point you will have a toolkit that you'll click on and you'll be able to see the various templates that you can use for posters and signs and artwork and so on. There may be advertising involved. So those are the kinds of expenses that we are incurring. Now, as far as financing local groups, that has been discussed at the steering committee level. And in the $15,000 budget that we have, there's not room for that right now. But let's say this becomes wildly successful, and the fact that 500 and some people registered for this and 300 and some people, came to the actual meeting is a huge success in my way of thinking. So for the sake of argument, if we were to raise 30,000 instead of 15,000, then that allows us a lot of freedom to perhaps start funding some of the local groups that are going to be organizing for October 1. But just imagine if we have 50 groups and each group gets $200, that's $10,000. So, I cannot answer that question at the moment, but in the $15,000 budget, there is no allocation for local groups. We go past that, it will be discussed.
Thanks. Ken, is there a question?
A couple. Susan Elston said it was the Ontario Clean Energy Alliance that motivated the Liberal phase out of coal and oil. Can we use the same model here? Get the health associations on side. They have much to gain with improved senior health from improvement in air quality. And again, absolutely. And having a national organization of seniors just can really help support groups like the Clean Air Alliance, and especially when there's connections like there are, Rolly said, with pensions, there's also important connections with health. The other thing I wanted to mention is another question early from, let's see, where is it? Phyllis Waugh as well, saying that I probably didn't frame it optimally about with the Indigenous. We really should be supporting them because they're in the trenches and leading and have been for a long time. And again, I can easily imagine a strong role for seniors to support them. The other one is for the Youth Climate Corps is another very important initiative that really needs to happen. And apparently in the US, I think they haven't, Biden did announce there'd be such a thing. So I think, again, a strong push for a Youth Climate Corps in Canada would be excellent. As Rolly mentioned with Eric, it's extraordinary to be working with young people.
Could I add to that, Karen? As far as the medical connection, the CAPE, which is the Canadian Association, somebody help me out here. Canadian Association for Physicians for the Environment. Yeah. They will become an endorser. We've had discussions with the climate campaign director, Rob Barnes in Ottawa. And they're just not on our page yet for endorsers, but they will be endorsing our initiative. And Youth Climate Corps, we were approached by one of the organizers for the Youth Climate Corps. Actually, Brian Patterson and I had a meeting with the Ontario representatives of that program, and they're very interested in working in getting our support, of course, and working with youth and collaborating as we move forward in the planning for the October 1 event. Of course, we have connections as well with Seth Klein, who's with the Climate Emergency Unit, and I've had discussions about whether that unit can also provide support as we go forward. So the same is going on with 350.org and other environmental defense and other organizations. And some of them, like 350 and environmental defense, I'm looking at my page here, are already endorsers. They are backing our program and supporting it, some of them financially.
There are a couple of questions that are about how people can participate. For example, Kathleen Wallace Deering says, is it better for those of us in metro regions to join one large event or to organize smaller events in our suburbs? And also Jane Garson says, will there be an online event for people outside major areas who are unable to get to a live event?
On the last point, I think that that's an interesting concept, and we'll take that back. That's the best I can answer. But Nick, did you want to get into the first part of the question, organizing a large event or a bunch of smaller ones?
Sure. So, the way we're doing this is that each area, each location decides what's best for your situation. And we also want to put people in touch with each other. So in a particular area, there may be people who are in different, like it's a larger metropolitan area. There are people there that once they're put in touch with each other might decide to do a joint event. And in other cases, they may decide to do, more separate events.
There are a number of people who have their hands up. Josephine, you're on deck. Do you have a question, or would you like to offer a sign up for an initiative?
I have more or less a question, because I am already with Carmen Luisel in Edmonton. So I've already joined up with her, and she'll decide everything. I also am on the condo board of my condo here. I'm on the 7th floor or something. And we just had a roof installed and everything. So I was suggesting solar roof. Okay, no, that's so expensive. And then now in whatever chats and emails, I also suggest heat pumps. I think heat pumps are available for high rises, are they not? Well, it's not high, but 9 floors is kind of a high rise.
China, all of China is heat pumps. I can show you a picture. They're all along the walls.
Yeah, because I just want to tell them that it is maybe, I mean, the owners will have to put down money. And if they don't have it, well, then we can't do it, I guess.
It's a great question. Great question, Josephine. So if somebody has more details, you can add that into the chat around heat pumps for high rises. That sounds like a slogan or a campaign as well. Susan, I'm not sure if you have a question or if you had an initiative that you wanted to put on the map.
Well, I'm just wanted to say I'm with Surrey for Future, and would be very happy to bring this forward to them. Surrey, I'm also currently attending a climate solutions session put on by Regenerate BC, being held at the Semiahmoo Public Library in South Surrey, with many attendees from White Rock. And our last session is this coming Monday. So I will definitely bring this to their attention and see, because we are in this group, we are being tasked with coming up with some actions, individual actions, community actions. So I see this as a perfect fit for the people in the group that are gathering at the public library but also for Regenerate BC and also for Surrey for Future. And I'm also involved with Sue Big Oil Surrey. So I will try and bring this to all of those groups and see if we can get something going in Surrey or join a Vancouver initiative. And
Wonderful.
if David's and I was involved with David Suzuki way back in the Blue Dot movement years ago in Alberta. And if David Suzuki wants to come to our initiative in Surrey, that'd be great.
Wonderful. So Susan from Surrey is signing up of some sort. I guess that's an alliteration. Susan from Surrey is signing up of some sort, so we can put her on the map. Pam Fitzgerald.
Hi, good. I'm from Ottawa. I've been involved in various groups over the years, including against bank financing of fossil fuel initiatives. And other people know me from the Ottawa group in SCAN and 350.org. I have 2 points I'd like to make, please. I noticed that a lot of people were concerned about the number of people coming out to events or meetings or whatever. And I'm wondering if any of you have tried adding a social element to your event, in the sense that we're a gregarious type, we're those outgoing people, but a lot of seniors are very lonely. They don't know how to meet other seniors with maybe similar interests. And if we tacked on, a coffee clutch or something to the end of meetings, going to a coffee house at the end of an event, I think it would make it a lot more attractive to seniors who don't know anybody in the movement. And it would also give them a chance to discuss some of their concerns with other like-minded people. I think this work can be incredibly lonely for some people. So I'll put it that way, and depressing sometimes too. So I think that we really need to think about putting in more social opportunities for people when we develop these events. And the other point I'd like to make briefly is that I like Dr. Suzuki's idea of sort of going across the country. I've actually taken my electric car and moved from Victoria to Ottawa. So I know so I know it can be done, and I know, but I know it has to be well planned. So if there is some momentum on that, I would certainly be glad to play a role in helping to maybe organize an eastern segment that would meet the western segment someplace in the middle, or just meet up someplace in the middle. So I'll just leave it at those are my 2 points. Yeah.
Thanks, Pam. Peter.
I'm calling from Vancouver, Suzuki Elder, and I'm curious, has there been any thought about exploring the litigation that's starting to, waves of litigation against governments for lack of action? Has there been any investigation about how that might look in Canada and whether we might be able to foment that?
Good question from Peter. I'm not sure if there are other or additional panelists or anyone online who can provide an answer to that. If there are, if there's any groups that are pursuing the litigation front.
I could maybe add a little bit, and somebody else could jump in. Certainly environmental defense and eco-justice, that's what they do. And there have been a lot of youth-oriented litigation efforts in Canada. I don't know if there have been any senior related. I don't think there have. I think they've all been revolving around youth suing governments for not protecting them. And so whether there's a possibility of doing that for seniors as well, I'm not sure. Now, these events have not been terribly successful, although they keep working their way up the layer of courts. So at a lower court, they might get thrown out and then they go to the next level. So they're still in, a lot of them are still in process. Now, there may be somebody else who knows more than that.
Okay.
This
Nick,
is Janet.
I think Nick can add to that.
Well, just that I don't think there's any initiative, certainly not well known around seniors. However, as this movement grows, there may be the potential of looking into something like that. It's quite a substantial undertaking. So I guess that would be something to think about on the agenda going forward of a seniors movement. And I had a couple other comments too, so I don't know if I'll save them until we come to be in the order.
Chat. Okay, great. Bob.
Thank you. Just a couple of comments in terms of what we're talking about. First of all, I think we might want to talk to Food Banks Canada. I'm work with Food Bank in Northumberland. A lot of seniors have interaction on a regular basis with people who work in the food banks, and food security and nutrition and health are of course all connected. So I think that's a group that might be interested in helping to publicize the events and look at that. The other thing is we have a lot of senior artists and musicians. And I mentioned that Marie Lynn Hammond and I have been talking about producing another climate song. But if we could have a number of musicians from across the country who are seniors contribute to music, that could be part of that social interaction and celebration that I think could be really valuable. I'd also suggest we look at perhaps an electric bus as opposed to cars that could perhaps bring a number of people along if we're taking our story and raising money. Also, I've been reading the research lately on the problems with water consumption and electric vehicles. I know we don't want to always know about that, but also the dangers of the what are called rare minerals related to radiation. So I think it would be interesting to look at the most sustainable, the most eco-friendly way of transit if we're going to do that. Finally, I'm in Northumberland County in Ontario. We already have an environmental coalition that includes a SCAN, a Council of Canadians, Blue Dot, and a number of other organizations. So we're hoping to develop a model for a local action that actually utilizes everyone in the coalition. And we also have a website and other things that we'll be putting things on. And I'm wondering if we could have a network across the country where we could share ideas for those and perhaps encourage other people to have that kind of concerted community action. So just some comments.
So it's over to you, Roger, and then I think we've got 5 more, and then maybe we'll try our best to close.
Well, thank you. I'm wondering if David Suzuki is still on. I think the idea of a bike rally, some kind of a relay across Canada with the time zones would be really fantastic. We could Zoom it. We could cut from one village or one town or one city to another. It could be really a fantastic idea. We start in Newfoundland and follow the time zones west. So everybody's watching it at like noon at their lunch break or whatever time we would set up. And potentially we could have thousands of people participate in that. I think it's a brilliant idea, but David has lots of those anyway, so we'll see where that goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Roger. I love the idea of the grandchildren joining as well. I mean, for those of you who have grandchildren. Chris.
Hi, yeah, I'm Chris Nanda from Ottawa. Just had a couple of thoughts. I like just to echo the idea about the bike relay. One other option, or the just relay across the country. The other option would be, sometimes you have the fuel that's like from, I don't know, fryer fat or something like that. There have been vehicles like that. I was just going to say that one of the things, though, that is important, a couple of people mentioned about the faith communities. And there are a lot out there. I'm a Christian, and I actually studied at Regent College. And one of the things I studied was the mandate for environmental stewardship, and it's actually quite strong. And so, there's lots of things that if you're trying to reach out to people who don't, in the church community, who may not get it. I did something that's 30 years old, but it's still relevant, and I'd be happy to share it with people. I'm also, in terms of other groups, I'm on the board for CPAWS, the Ottawa Valley. and, you know, I think David Suzuki mentioned CPAWS, and, you know, I think a lot of the people on the board are in the demographic of 60 plus. So I could raise that with them. In terms of artists, Bruce Coburn is somebody who, I mean, he's a Canadian. He comes up. He'd be somebody, you know, who, if you, and he's definitely a senior, and he's going to be in Ottawa on Friday. But to have somebody, and then there's, like I mentioned, Regent College, a professor of mine, Lauren Wilkinson, he's retired now, but he's written a book about, you know, the need to take care of the cosmos. And Catherine Hayhoe, who's a Canadian, she's also a Christian, but she's also, and she's not 60, but again, she's somebody she's one of those people who's got lots of energy. So you could conceivably, and she has parents who still live in Canada, who I believe are probably over 60. So I don't know her, but if anybody does, she would be a good person. And there are groups, I mean, like Arasha, I mentioned, I'm part of, that's a Christian conservation organization. They don't, they're not like advocacy, but they do support things. And again, there's a lot of people that are there. And Preston Manning's wife was on the board, and there was a session at Region about 10 years ago where I think Peter Robinson is his name, from the Suzuki Foundation, the former chair. He and Preston Manning sat down and they basically agreed on the importance of everything. Unfortunately, the current leader of the Conservative Party doesn't get it. So anyway, so those are just ideas. And in terms of youth, getting youth involved. I'm actually volunteering this week. The Rotary Club has this Adventures in Citizenship program where they have youth from across the country, and they spend 4 days in Ottawa and see things. And I was talking to a young girl about 16 or 17 who's definitely interested in climate change. So anyway, those are just some ideas. I'd be happy to, I don't want to overcommit, but I'm happy to make calls or put people in touch with some people in the faith community. I know the last one was Citizens for Public Justice or Mennonite Central Committee or other.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. I did put in the chat, there's an organization called Faith in the Common Good. I know that they're an interfaith organization that develops.
Kairos is another one.
Yeah.
And then there is the Green Churches. That's primarily Catholic in Quebec. And I don't know anybody there, but that's another one people could look into.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Diane.
Hi, I'm in Ottawa. And I was involved a number of years ago when Tony Turner wrote the song Harper Man. And we sang Harper Man, and we did a cross-country sing-along of Harper Man, and you can see versions of that on YouTube still. It was Harper Man, It's Time for You to Go. So I don't want to be politically incorrect if anyone is dyed-in-the-wool conservative still. I can't imagine who might be, but anyway, there you go. I think singing is a key way to protest. I think it brings people together. And I also belong to a choir that does a lot of fundraising for good causes. At Christmas, we raised $22,000 for the Ottawa Food Bank. We raised, I think, $10,000 for South Ottawa Refugee Association. And recently we did a community kitchen event. So, you know, I think using music would be really something. I do like David's idea of bike rides, but perhaps we keep them local, because most of the intercity routes are dangerous in this country. The Trans-Canada Trail is not complete, and you know, we could do sections of it, but the highways are dangerous. Our member of provincial parliament, Joel Harden, actually has raised that in the provincial legislature about safety on highways. And it's, you know, it's key. I mean, you want to get people out into the environment, but it's dangerous to get a lot of places. So I think that music is really important. And for those of you who are in the Ottawa area, I mean, I'd be happy to host a chat event at my home anytime. Pam Fitzgerald you are a name from my past, I believe, but we've lost touch. So, and Ken Johnson, I certainly know. So, you know, if anybody wants to be in touch with me and have a chat about this, this is fine. I'll get involved in some peripheral way for October 1st. Maybe it'll be singing. Maybe you'll be getting 4 or 5 voices together to sing some sort of protest song if we come up with it. Or maybe I'll just stand behind the raging grannies as I often do and harmonize. So music, cycling, those are 2 things that I would be very much into supporting if anybody else in the Ottawa area wants to pursue that. But I don't really know who's in charge. All those things are really important to me. And I tweet under Peace for Nature. For very good reason, because environment and peace are the 2 big issues in my mind. So anyway, I'm here and I'm happy to participate, and I'll certainly cycle. I'll
Great,
certainly.
thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Diane. Looks like Chris is asking you for your email in the chat. So over to you, David.
Thanks, Amber, very much. And well done, you and crew, for putting all this together. David Suzuki, I noticed on the map that there was nothing west of London organized. That may not be correct, but that I didn't see anything. And if David Suzuki were to come to Essex County, Windsor, where he spent some of his younger years, I'm sure people would come out in hordes to honor him, and it would be a major fundraiser. So that's my suggestion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, so thanks. West of London in Ontario, that's right. So far, nothing. Doesn't mean it won't be, things won't be happening, but and if you're one of the contacts, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, Janet. Over
I
to
am
you.
from the Council of Canadians in Ottawa, and I'm committing to participate in helping to organize an event in the Ottawa area. I have friends who have said that they might be able to help with choreographing a flash mob to do a dance. What I was thinking of is having maybe it videotaped and then posting it so that other people could use the choreography elsewhere. Also, the Council of Canadians Ottawa chapter has been involved in helping to prevent the nuclear waste dump.
Can I just add to what Nick DiCarlo said a while ago? Great wrap up and great summary of this successful event. The fact that we had, over 500 registrations, and even though there's only 66 people left, just wanted to let you know that tonight we raised $1,950. So, I mean, that adds to the momentum of the evening, I think. And thank you very much, Amber. Great job.
I want to really thank Amber for stepping up to help us with the moderating. It's one of those things you get tossed into, and it's a difficult task sometimes to be able to do, and she's done a great job for us. And I want to thank Reclimate for sharing both Amber and Louise, and for, of course, the work they do on climate communication is really critical. And none of it would have happened without Caroline Taylor and Eric Murphy, who are in the background, making sure this whole thing worked. So I really want to thank them for that. Eric is on loan from Climate Legacy, and Caroline is with Climate Action for Lifelong Learners, CALL. I think I can pass it back to Amber.
This is the formal closing of the inaugural meeting of Seniors for Climate. I think it couldn't have gone better. So congratulations to the people who organized it, and congratulations to everyone who showed up. I think this has been, for me, one of the most moving and exciting meetings I've been to in a very long time. And I attend a lot of meetings about climate change. And so I just want to give you a hug and a thank you. And I'm really grateful that everyone showed up today, and I'm grateful that people like you are living across the country and have the time and the inspiration to get involved. I have 2 young people. I'm probably the age of many of your children, and we need you and we need your support to make this thing happen. So with that said, I'm very excited to see what happens next. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
So are-
Amber.
So are we.
Thank you. Thanks
Can
for
we come
bringing us
off
all
mute and give
together.
a big clap and applause for all the participants and the great organizers, please? Wonderful session. Very inspiring.
Very inspiring. I agree, Roger. See you.